Welcome to World War II Stories for Sleep. Tonight there is nothing urgent for you to do. There is nowhere you need to go. There is no task you need to finish. No thought you need to hold tightly in your mind. You can let the day loosen its grip. You can let your shoulders drop. You can let your hands rest. Let your jaw soften. Let your breath come in gently and let it leave without effort. There is enough time now, enough darkness, enough quiet, enough distance from the noise of the day. You do not need to remember every date. You do not need to follow every detail. You do not need to hold the whole story. You can drift in and out. If sleep comes before the end, that is all right. The story will keep moving softly, like tide water over sand. This is not a story of battle. This is not a story of noise or sudden movement. This is not the famous version of Dunkirk told through urgency, spectacle, and large movements on a map. This is a quiet story from the hidden edges of history, from the long waiting hours that are rarely remembered, from the sand, from the cold water, from the men standing in lines, from the letters folded inside coat pockets, from the tin cups, damp blankets, cigarettes, pocket watches, greatcoats, ropes, life belts, and boots full of sand. Tonight, we are going to Dunkirk, to the northern coast of France, to late May and early June of 1940, to the beaches of Panne, Bray-Dunes, Malo-les-Bains, and Dunkirk, to Operation Dynamo, to the long wait on the sand. We will not tell it as a battle documentary. We will tell it as the untold story of waiting, the story of the beach as a waiting room, the story of the English Channel as an ancient breathing presence, the story of the East Mole, fragile and wooden, holding more history than it was ever meant to hold, the story of small boats crossing grey water, the story of men who stood in the shallows, waited for the tide and carried home inside small objects, a folded letter, a photograph, a cigarette, a pencil stub, a stone from the beach, a cup of tea, a blanket, a boot with sand in it, a rifle cleaned too many times. Before we enter the beach, let the modern room around you begin to fade. The walls grow softer. The present becomes distant. The sounds of today move farther away. The air changes. It becomes colder, saltier, wider. A grey light opens over the sea. Not bright, not dark, only grey. The kind of grey that belongs to northern beaches, low clouds, wet sand and long tides. The smell changes too. Salt water, cold wind, wet wool, diesel, smoke far away, damp canvas, boot leather, tea and tin cups, tobacco, sand, always sand. You're not in danger, you're only travelling through memory, slowly, gently, safely. The year is 1940, the month is May. The place is the French coast near Dunkirk. The land is low here, the sea is wide, the sky seems close to the sand, dunes rise in pale ridges behind the beach. The water spreads outward in long flat bands, grey-green and cold. The tide moves in and out with patient force. It does not hurry, it does not explain itself. It simply breathes, in and out, in and out. The English Channel lies ahead, ancient, cold, grey-green, patient. She has seen crossings before, Roman ships, Viking boats, medieval traders, fishermen before dawn, the Armada under heavy skies, Napoleon's imagined invasion, ferries in fog, smugglers, pilgrims, families, soldiers. Now she watches thousands of young men standing in her shallows. She's not cruel, she's not kind, she simply is. She breathes in tides, she lifts and lowers the small craft. She carries distant engine sounds across her surface. She hides England behind haze. Somewhere beyond her grey water, the white cliffs of Dover exist. The men cannot see them, but they know they are there. That is enough. Enough for now. The sand of Dunkirk moved into everything. It moved into boots, into socks, into cuffs, into hair, into bread, into letters folded inside coat pockets, into the seams of greatcoats, into the oil on rifles cleaned too many times, into the rim of a tin cup held between cold hands. It was not soft sand, not in the way a holiday beach is soft. It was damp in places, dry and powdery in others, packed flat by thousands of boots, rucked into ridges by wheels, heels, shovels, and the slow drag of tired feet. Near the water, it darkened. Farther back, It blew in pale sheets when the wind came low across the beach. It clung to everything. It became part of the waiting. At Dunkirk in the last days of May 1940, the beach had become a room without walls. A wide room of sand, water, sky, smoke, men, helmets, rifles, blankets, and silence. Not silence like peace. A lower silence. A silence made of waiting. The low murmur of thousands of voices, the cry of gulls, the lap of waves against the sand, the clank of mess tins, the scratch of a pencil on paper, the cough of a man in a greatcoat, the distant thump from the perimeter, the tide pulling at pebbles, the creak of leather, the scrape of a boot, the breath of men standing in line. The beach was not a battlefield in the way men had imagined battle. It was a waiting room made of sand, a waiting room under a grey sky, a waiting room where the door was the sea. The men stood in lines that stretched from the dunes toward the water. Some lines were straight at first, then bent under pressure. Some curved toward the shallows. Some broke and formed again. Some seemed to vanish into the grey-green water itself. Men stood with packs. Men stood without packs. Men held rifles. Men carried helmets filled with seawater. Men held letters. Men smoked cigarettes carefully, as if smoke could measure time. Men cleaned rifles because hands needed something to do. Men looked toward the horizon. The horizon gave little back. The sea was grey. The sky was grey. The water near shore was brown and green where the sand moved under it. Farther out, the English Channel darkened and brightened in shifting strips. Grey to green, green to steel, steel to dull silver when the clouds thinned for a moment. The Channel breathed in. The Channel breathed out. The tide came slowly, then left slowly. It pulled at the ankles of men standing in the shallows. It tugged at scraps of wood. It erased footprints, then allowed new ones. The tide did not hurry. It had never hurried. It had moved before armies, before uniforms, before flags, before the men on the beach had names. It moved now with the same patience, in and out, in and out. Enough to make the beach change shape. Enough to move the line forward or back, enough to remind every man that the sea was not a road, not yet. At La Panne, the sand stretched wide and flat. At Bray-Dunes, men stood in groups where the beach met the low dunes. At Malo-les-Bains, houses and villas looked out toward a shore that no longer belonged to summer. Their windows faced the waiting. Their walls held the last traces of ordinary life. A curtain, a chair, a garden wall, a gate half open. The promenade and streets behind the beach had changed, but the beach itself had become the centre. Sand, men, water, waiting. Nothing unusual, just the tide, just the line, just the cold. A soldier named Arthur Bell stood in one of the long lines near Bray-Dunes with sand in his left boot and a biscuit wrapped in cloth inside his pocket. He was 23, from Kent. He had worked in a small garage before the war and knew the smell of oil better than the smell of the sea. He had seen the Channel many times from England, but it had looked different then. A familiar strip of weather, a grey distance, a thing crossed by ferries, fishing boats, gulls, and talk. Now it stood between him and home. He could not see the white cliffs. They were somewhere beyond the haze, somewhere behind the grey water. Somewhere the mind insisted on placing them, even when the eye could not. Arthur shifted his weight. The sand inside his boot pressed against his heel. He had emptied it twice that day. It returned each time. He had stopped resenting it. The sand was one of the facts now, like thirst, like the line, like the channel, like the cold that came whenever the wind changed. In his pocket, folded twice, was a letter from his sister. She had written about rain at home, about a neighbour's dog, about their mother saving tea leaves longer than she admitted, about whether he had enough socks. Women at home seemed to think socks were the first line of defence against the whole war. Perhaps they were. Arthur had read the letter so often that the fold was soft. He did not take it out on the beach unless the wind lowered. A letter could be lost too easily there. Sand could enter it, water could take it, and there were some things a man held back from the wind. He waited, he listened, he breathed. He shifted his rifle from one shoulder to the other. He waited again. Ahead of him, a man named Morris smoked half a cigarette and saved the rest behind his ear. Behind him, a corporal opened and closed a pocket watch without looking surprised by the time. The time did not move properly on the beach. It moved in lines, in tides, in rumours, in the appearance of boats and their disappearance, in the order to move 6 yards forward, then stop, in the order to wait, then wait longer. A man could look at his watch and learn nothing useful. The hands moved, the line did not. Or the line moved, and the watch seemed absurd. Morris said, "I'll never like sand again," Arthur said. "You liked it before?" "No, but I had no policy." The corporal behind them said, "Policies change under pressure." No one laughed loudly. A small smile was enough for now. The beach held many such small conversations, not speeches, not declarations, not the language of history. Only words passing between tired men. "Have you got a light? Move up a bit. Mind your pack. Sand in everything. Where are you from? Got any tea? Heard anything? No. Nothing. Wait. Move. Stop. Wait again." A harmonica sounded somewhere farther down the beach. Only a few notes. Then a pause. Then the same few notes again. The player was unseen. The sound was thin in the wind. It drifted over helmets and greatcoats and men standing with their faces turned toward the channel. No one asked him to stop. No one asked him to play more. A few notes were enough. At Dunkirk, enough became a way of living. Enough water for a swallow, enough biscuit for a mouthful, enough tobacco for half a cigarette, enough warmth from a shared blanket, enough sleep for 10 minutes in the sand, enough hope to keep standing, enough silence to hear the tide. The men waited in the last days of May. Operation Dynamo had begun on May 26, 1940. The evacuation would last until June 4th. But the men on the beach did not live inside that completed span. They lived inside the present, May 26th, May 27th, May 28th, May 29th. Dates became less clear when one had not slept properly. The beach had its own calendar, the tide came in, the tide went out, boats appeared, boats filled, boats left, men moved, men waited, the tide returned. Nothing unusual, just the line, just the sea, just the cold. The British Expeditionary Force had been pushed back toward the coast. French troops held parts of the perimeter with British and other Allied units, while the evacuation took shape. The word perimeter belonged to maps and commanders. For the men on the beach, it was distant sound, distant engines, distant vibration, a low thump beyond the dunes, a tremor underfoot sometimes, a faint drone in the sky that came and went. When aircraft appeared, they were often high, dark silhouettes against grey light. The men looked up, then looked down again. The beach taught them what could be controlled and what could not. A man could tighten a strap, clean a rifle, share a cigarette, write a line, move forward when told, crouch when others crouched, sleep when exhaustion took him. He could not command the sky, he could not command the channel, he could not command the next boat. So he waited. He listened. He breathed. He slept when he could. He woke. He waited again. The untold story of Dunkirk is not only the crossing, it is the waiting before the crossing, the long, slow human time on sand. Thousands of men close together, yet each alone inside his own body, each with his own hunger, his own tired feet, his own letter, his own fear held quietly, his own memory of home, his own small object, a tin cup, a blanket, a cigarette, a scarf, a pocket watch, a photograph, a pack of cards, a pencil stub, a biscuit wrapped in cloth, a rifle cleaned too many times, a stone from the beach kept in a pocket for no clear reason. Arthur had not yet picked up a stone, but he would. Not because he planned to remember the beach. At that moment he only wanted to leave it. Memory often begins as an accident. A thing picked up because the hand needs weight. A stone, a button, a broken pencil, a piece of rope, a scrap of paper. Later the object becomes proof. The beach was real, the line was real, the waiting was real, the sand was real, the channel was real, not a painting, not a word in a newspaper, not a story told too loudly in a pub years later. Real. Cold in the feet, salt in the mouth, sand in the bread, wind in the eyes. At Malo-les-Bains, men sat near a low wall when they could. The town behind them had been changed by war, but traces of seaside life remained. A painted railing, a shutter, a sign no one cared to read, a cafe chair left tilted, a child's bucket half buried in sand. The men did not stare at these things for long. They were too close to ordinary life, too close to another use for the beach. A beach should have held towels. Children, sandwiches, sunburn, old men in hats, women adjusting scarves in sea wind. Now it held rifles, helmets, field dressings, greatcoats, abandoned vehicles, queues, and the weight of departure. The Channel saw it all. She had seen many crossings, Romans in ships with square sails, Viking vessels cutting across colder centuries, the Armada moving under dangerous skies, Napoleon's long shadow on the French coast, fishing boats working before dawn, ferries crossing in fog, smugglers, merchants, pilgrims, soldiers, families. Now she watched these young men standing in her shallows, grey-green, cold, patient, neither kind nor cruel. The Channel breathed in tides. She carried sound strangely. A distant engine could travel over her surface and seem nearer than it was. A gull's cry could stretch. A small boat's chug could vanish behind a swell. The tide pulled and returned, like the chest of a sleeping man. The men faced her because she was the way home, but the Channel did not become easier because men needed her. She chopped under wind, she shifted colour, she hid distance in haze. Near shore she was brown and sandy, a little farther out green-grey. Beyond that, steel and slate. On some mornings she looked flat enough to walk. By afternoon she reminded everyone she was water. Small waves slapped thighs, spray-dampened sleeves, cold entered boots. A helmet filled with seawater became heavier than expected. A man could joke about it once, then not again. Arthur watched a line of men farther down the beach move into the water, slowly, not rushing. Rifles held high, packs lifted, greatcoats dragging. The water reached their knees, then thighs, then waists. They kept moving toward boats that could not come all the way in. Some men stumbled, others helped them. No one made much of it. Helping became part of the movement. A hand under an elbow, a grip on a strap, a word, steady. There. Keep moving. Enough. Then the line stopped. A boat filled. Another waited. The men in the water stood as the tide moved around them. The Channel breathed in. The Channel breathed out. At La Panne, the wind carried sand low across the beach. Men turned their faces away. A sergeant told his section to keep their line. He said it softly. He did not need to shout. The line was already their whole world. The sergeant's name was Ellis. He had a scarf wrapped around his neck and a cigarette unlit between his fingers. He did not light it because the wind would waste the match. He saved matches now. A match was a small, powerful thing. Fire for a cigarette. Fire for tea if one had tea. Fire for warmth if one had something to burn. Fire for a few seconds of proof that one could still make a choice. He placed the cigarette back in its packet. There were 2 left. Enough. Beside him, a young soldier named Peter Gray cleaned his rifle again. Not because it needed cleaning, because the motion made sense. Cloth, metal, oil, check, again. The rifle had sand in places sand had no right to enter. Peter muttered at it. The sergeant looked down. "You'll polish it away," Peter said. "It keeps coming back." "Sand does." "Is that wisdom?" "No. Observation." Peter continued. The sound of cloth on metal was small, repetitive, calming in a hard way. Around them, the beach made its long list of sounds. Gulls, waves, boots, coughs, low voices, mess tins, distant guns, a harmonica, a pencil scratching, canvas shifting, water dragging at pebbles, a boat engine far out, the creak of straps, the murmur of thousands of men becoming one sound like the sea itself. If you are still here, you are already drifting. That is enough. Close your eyes again. Let the Channel carry the wider story for you. The men are still waiting. The tide is still breathing. Nothing else matters for now. The beach stretches on. La Panne, Bray-Dunes, Malo-les-Bains, Dunkirk. Sand, water, sky. The line. The waiting. Enough. Behind the beaches, the dunes and roads held other forms of waiting. Vehicles stood abandoned where they could go no farther. Some had been damaged, some had run out of fuel, some had been left because the beach did not need wheels, a lorry half buried in sand, a motorcycle tilted near a fence, a staff car with one door open, a bicycle with a bent wheel, equipment piled and sorted, some kept, some burned, some abandoned. War leaves objects behind before it leaves places behind. The men looked at them and did not look. A helmet upside down, a boot without its pair, a crate broken open, a tin of biscuits spilled, a map damp at the edge, a rifle stacked with others, a scarf caught on wire. Not every object meant tragedy. Some meant haste, some meant exhaustion, some meant a man had chosen to carry water instead. On the sand, a helmet filled with seawater sat beside a group of men. One of them had used it to wash his hands, another had tried to rinse sand from a cup. Now the helmet reflected a pale piece of sky. It looked almost peaceful. A man saw the reflection and said, "Looks better in there." No one answered. The sky and the helmet trembled when the wind moved the water. Farther along, a soldier named René Marchand sat near the edge of a dune with a French unit that had been moving between positions near the perimeter. He was 28, from Lille. He had a wife and a daughter who had recently learned to say the word papillon and had used it for nearly every flying thing. Butterfly, bird, aircraft, paper in the wind. René kept this memory carefully, not because it was strategic, because it was his. The French troops holding parts of the perimeter around Dunkirk did not become the centre of every later story, but they were there. Their waiting was different. Many were not waiting for the same boats yet. Many held ground so others could leave. Many moved through villages, roads, canal lines, fields and positions where the sound of the wider war came closer. But sometimes, in pauses, the beach reached them too. The smell of salt, the gulls, the grey light, the sense that the channel was near. René sat with a tin cup in both hands. The cup held tea given by a British soldier who had called it tea with confidence and apology. René drank it anyway. It was warm. Warm was enough. Beside him, a British private tried to say merci and said it badly. René nodded as if the pronunciation were acceptable. This was kindness. The two men did not share much language. They shared the cup. That was enough. At Dunkirk, enough moved between men in small ways. A cigarette passed, a match cupped against wind, a biscuit broken, a blanket edge shared, a place in line kept, a man woken when the line moved, a wounded man not asked too many questions, a joke translated badly, a tin cup filled halfway, a stone handed over because the other man had lost his. Nothing unusual, just men making small shelters out of ordinary gestures. The English Channel watched. She had no flag, no uniform, no command. She did not choose one language over another. She carried French fishermen before the war, British ferries, Dutch barges, Belgian boats, German mines, Roman memory, Viking ghosts, Napoleon's unrealized crossing. She carried wind, foam, salt, oil, fear, hope. She was the old water between two lands. She was close enough to make home feel near, wide enough to keep it unreachable. The white cliffs of Dover were somewhere beyond the haze. The men knew this the way one knows a room exists behind a closed door, not seen, still real. Some men spoke of the cliffs, most did not. To speak of home too often could hurt. A man could think of it quietly, a kitchen, a train station, a field, a factory, a wife, a pub, rain on a window, a dog at the gate, a mother saving tea, a father pretending not to worry, but he might not say it aloud. Words made things fragile. The line on the sand moved a little. Arthur Bell stepped forward with the others, one pace, then another, then stop. The movement was so small it seemed useless, but small movements became miles when repeated. A man ahead bent to empty sand from his boot. The man behind him nearly stepped into him. Someone muttered. Someone apologized. The man with the boot shook it hard. Sand fell out in a small stream. He put the boot back on, tied it slowly. No one hurried him. Everyone understood. A boot with sand in it could become the whole world if ignored long enough. The line moved again. One pace, two, stop. Nothing unusual, just the line, just the tide, just the cold. Toward the port, beyond the beaches, the east mole stretched into deeper water. At first, for many on the sand, it was only a distant shape. A long, narrow line reaching from Dunkirk toward the ships. Not a proper pier built for this kind of history. A wooden breakwater, a fragile structure of planks and pilings, never meant to become the main artery of an evacuation. But it did. The mole became the thin thread, the strange, narrow bridge between beach and ship. Men would file along it for hours, then days, 3 abreast, weighted with packs, rifles, helmets, exhaustion. The planks creaked under them, the pilings groaned, the sea struck the wood below. Destroyers came alongside when they could. The whole structure shuddered when a ship touched it. It was fragile, improvised, absurd, a wooden walkway holding the weight of history. But in the first part of the waiting, for Arthur and many others, the mole was still distant, a rumour in wood, a line toward deeper water, a place where men disappeared into order and perhaps into rescue. The beach had many rumours, boats coming, boats not coming, move east, move west, the mole is working, the mole is crowded, the tide is wrong, the tide is turning, ships tonight, ships tomorrow, little boats coming from England, destroyers offshore, French troops holding. Perimeter still there, perimeter changing. Do not believe everything, believe nothing. Wait. Men listened to rumours as they listened to weather. Some were useful, some only passed time. A rumour could warm men for 10 minutes, then leave them colder. Arthur learned to let them pass. He kept the line. He checked his pocket for the letter. Still there. He touched the biscuit. Still there. He shifted the rifle. Still his. Enough. The beach afternoon lowered into evening without becoming gentle. Clouds moved over the channel. The water darkened. The tide changed. Men who had stood for hours sat when allowed. Some lay down in the sand with packs as pillows. Some wrapped greatcoats tighter. Some removed boots and regretted it when the sand entered everything. The harmonica returned, a different tune this time, or perhaps the same one, altered by wind. Someone hummed with it. Someone else told him to hum better. He said humming was not a formal service. A few men laughed. Enough. At La Panne the sand grew colder as evening came. At Bray-Dunes the sea turned the colour of old metal. At Malo-les-Bains, broken windows reflected a dull sky. The gulls became louder for a while, then fewer. The line remained. Men still watched the horizon. Boats were small at first, dark flecks, then shapes, then sometimes not boats at all. The eyes invented rescue before the channel delivered it. Far out, larger ships moved when they could. Nearer in, smaller craft worked slowly between shallows and deeper water. The sea did not make the work easy. She breathed in, she breathed out. She lifted boats, dropped them, turned them, let them approach, pushed them off, not cruel, not kind, only herself. A man from Manchester named Collins tried to write a letter on his knee while seated in the sand. The paper bent in the wind, the pencil was short, his hands were cold. He wrote, "Dear ma'am, I am by the sea," then stopped. This was true, but useless. He tried again. "I am safe enough for now." That felt better. Safe enough. He looked at the phrase. Enough had become honest, not safe. Safe enough. Not warm. Warm enough. Not rested. Rested enough to keep awake. Not certain. Certain enough to stand in line. He continued. There is sand in everything. You would not approve of the state of my boots. Tell Dad the sea is grey here, not like postcards. He paused. The line ahead moved. He folded the unfinished letter quickly and placed it inside his coat. He stood. The pencil stub went behind his ear. He picked up his rifle. He moved 3 paces. Stopped. The letter remained unfinished. Most letters in Dunkirk were unfinished in one way or another. Even the completed ones could not say everything. The beach had too much in it. The sea had too much. The waiting had too much. So men wrote small truths. I am safe enough. I have eaten. I still have my boots. Do not worry if you can help it. The tea is bad. The sand is worse. I will write again. A letter did not need to explain the evacuation. It only needed to cross the distance between one hand and another. Night approached slowly. The first night for some, another night for others. On the beach, time did not begin at the same hour for every man. Some had arrived earlier, some later. Some had already spent a night in sand. Some had come from positions inland and were seeing the sea for the first time in days. Some had slept in ditches. Some had not slept. Some had eaten. Some had not. The beach gathered them into one visible mass, but each man carried a different road inside him. The channel saw this too. She saw them not as an army only, but as separate weights along her shore. She saw their greatcoats, their boots, their cigarettes, their helmets, their letters, their stones, their tired hands. She breathed in, she breathed out. The tide rose, the tide fell. If you're still listening, your breathing is slower now. The line is still moving. The tide is still breathing. Nothing else matters. Sleep can come in pieces, like boats through haze, like waves along the sand. Enough. The first low fires appeared along parts of the beach and behind the dunes. Not large fires, small ones, careful ones. Fires made from scraps, broken wood, paper, abandoned material, anything that could burn long enough to warm hands. Smoke drifted low. It smelled of salt, wet wool, wood smoke, diesel, paper, and the faint bitterness of things not meant for fire. Some men burned letters they could not carry. Some burned papers that should not be left. Some burned scraps of crates. A man warmed both hands around a tin cup with nothing in it because the cup had been warm earlier. Another man wrapped a scarf around his face and slept sitting up. Another removed a boot, shook out sand and put it back on without opening his eyes fully. He waited. He listened. He breathed. He slept when he could. He woke. He waited again. Arthur did not sleep at first. He sat with Morris and the corporal near a shallow ridge in the sand. The line had stopped for a time. No one knew how long. Morris found the saved half-cigarette behind his ear and held it up. The corporal offered a match. They cupped the flame between 3 pairs of hands. The cigarette lit. Morris took one draw, then passed it. Arthur took one. The corporal took one, then back to Morris. Smoke moved into the damp air. Half a cigarette divided among 3 men did not satisfy anyone. It did something better. It marked a minute that belonged to them. The sea pulled at the shore. The channel breathed. Far away engines sounded and faded. The sand grew colder under them. Arthur touched the letter in his pocket. Morris said, "When I get back, I'm sleeping in a bed for a week." The corporal said, "You will be ordered out of it in 6 hours." "Then I'll sleep rebelliously," Arthur said. "I'll empty my boots indoors." The corporal nodded. A noble ambition. Morris leaned back against his pack. Enough for now. Yes, enough for now. Behind them, somewhere near the dunes, a French voice spoke softly. Another answered. Men from different units and different roads shared the same grey shore. The perimeter still held. The evacuation continued. The mole waited in the distance. The small boats were beginning to gather into the story, though many on the beach had not yet seen them clearly. The first part of Dunkirk is not a clean beginning. It is a long wait already underway. Men arriving from roads, lines forming, tides changing, orders shifting, boats appearing, sand entering everything, the beach becoming a room, the channel becoming a door, the mole becoming a thread, the men becoming quieter as they waited. Nothing unusual, just the tide, just the line, just the cold. The night settled. The channel turned black. In the shallows, water moved with faint pale edges where disturbed by boots and waves. The sky opened in patches. Stars appeared between clouds, clear and indifferent. The men lay down where they could, some wrapped in greatcoats, some sharing blankets, some sitting upright because the sand was too cold or the weight too uncertain. Some did not sleep, some slept at once, some woke every few minutes. Sleep on the Dunkirk beaches came in fragments, a head dropping forward, a hand still on a rifle, a mouth open in exhaustion, a boot half unlaced, a cigarette burned out between fingers and taken away by another man before it wasted. A line of men standing in water under darkness, a small boat engine chugging closer, a voice calling low, a rope thrown, a wave pulling back. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out. Arthur slept for perhaps 20 minutes, perhaps less. He woke because the line moved. Morris touched his sleeve. Up. Arthur stood before he was fully awake. His body understood what the mind had not yet received. Move. Stop. Wait. Move again. The biscuit was still in his pocket. The letter still folded. The rifle still there. His boot still full of sand. The line advanced a few yards, then stopped. Dark water lay ahead. Somewhere beyond it, England. Somewhere beyond it, white cliffs he could not see. Somewhere beyond it, a bed he did not yet allow himself to imagine. He breathed. The air tasted of salt and smoke. Around him were the sounds of Dunkirk at night, the lap of waves, the pull of the tide, the low murmur of men, the cough of engines, the creak of leather, the clank of mess tins, the whisper of prayer, the scrape of boots, the distant drone high above, the wood smoke drifting low, the channel breathing in, the channel breathing out. The beach waited, the men waited, the sea waited in her own way. And farther toward the port, the east mole stretched into darkness, fragile and narrow, holding its place above the water. Soon, the story would move there, to the planks, to the pilings, to men walking three abreast, to destroyers shuddering beside wood, to the small boats crossing from England with civilian souls in wooden bodies. But for now, the sand remains. The sand in the boots, the sand in the letters, the sand on the bread, the sand under sleeping men, the sand that remembers every line and loses every footprint. The first block rests here, on the beach, under a grey night, beside the ancient channel, with thousands of men waiting quietly for the water to carry them home. The East Mole did not look like something meant to save an army. It was too narrow, too wooden, too exposed to wind and water, too simple for the weight that history would place upon it. It stretched out from Dunkirk into deeper water like a long, fragile line. Planks, pilings, nails, gaps, wet wood, rope, salt, men walking three abreast. The Mole had not been built for this. It had not been built to carry columns of soldiers hour after hour, day after day. It had not been built to become the main path from sand to ship. But places do not always choose the work given to them. Sometimes a wooden pier becomes a road, sometimes a beach becomes a waiting room, sometimes the channel becomes a door. The Mole creaked beneath the men. It trembled when feet moved in rhythm. It groaned when the waves pushed against its pilings. It shuddered when a destroyer came alongside. It held. Not perfectly, not comfortably, not without complaint, but enough. Enough for another line, enough for another group, enough for another hour, enough to hold men above grey-green water until a ship could take them. The men approached it from the beach in slow order. Sand first, then boards. The change underfoot was immediate. Soft sinking sand became hard wet wood. The boot no longer slid, it struck. Wood under leather, a hollow sound, then another, then many. Boots on planks, waves against pilings, gulls overhead, distant engines, low voices, rope scraping, a destroyer's hull moving beside wood, the clank of gear, the wind across wet coats, the channel breathing below. The men walked carefully, not because they were afraid of walking, because the Mole demanded attention. A man could look ahead, but not too far. He had to watch his step. He had to keep distance. He had to follow the shoulders in front of him. He had to trust that the line would not stop too suddenly. He had to trust the wood. That was not easy. The wood was wet in places. The wind pressed from the side. The channel moved below them, grey-green and patient, lifting and falling, lifting and falling. The men could see water through gaps, dark water, cold water, moving water. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out. At the far end, ships waited when they could. Destroyers, minesweepers, transport vessels, paddle steamers, small craft. Some came close to the Mole, some could not. Some took men directly from the end, some waited farther out. The Mole became the thin thread between a shore crowded with men and ships that could not stay long. It was fragile, improvised, almost absurd, a wooden walkway holding the weight of history. Arthur Bell first saw the Mole clearly in grey morning light. He had moved through the night in small advances, a few yards, then waiting, another few yards, then stopping again. The beach behind him seemed endless. The sea ahead seemed endless. But the Mole gave the waiting a shape, a line leading somewhere. Not home, not yet, only out from sand, out from the dunes, out from the wide, cold waiting room of Dunkirk. Arthur stood with Morris and the corporal as their section waited to be directed. His boot still held sand. His biscuit remained in his pocket. The letter from his sister was still folded inside his coat. He had slept in fragments. He felt as if the night had entered his clothes and would not leave. His greatcoat was damp at the edges. His hands were stiff. His face felt rough from salt and sand. Ahead, men moved onto the mole 3 abreast. The line looked orderly from a distance. Up close, it was made of exhaustion. A man adjusting a strap, a man limping quietly, a man carrying a helmet with water in it, a man smoking the last inch of a cigarette, a man with no rifle, a man with 2 rifles, a man with a scarf wrapped around his jaw, a man whose eyes remained half closed while he walked. Nothing unusual, just the line, just the wood, just the water. A military policeman near the entrance to the mole guided men forward with a voice made flat by repetition. 3 abreast. Keep moving. Mind the gaps. Close up. Not too close. Wait. Move. Wait. Move. He had said the words so many times that they no longer belonged to emotion. They were tools, like a rope, like a ladder, like a cup, like a hand on another man's shoulder. He pointed. Arthur's group moved forward. The sand gave way to planks. Arthur felt the first hollow strike of his boot on wood. It sounded louder than expected. The sound entered his legs. He became aware of the water below, aware of the wind, aware of the men ahead, aware of the narrowness. He kept his eyes on the back of Morris's coat. Morris moved steadily. The corporal moved behind Arthur. The line held them together. A man alone might hesitate. A line carries men forward. Step, pause, step, pause. Boots, wood, water, wind. The mole creaked under them. The pilings groaned below. The channel struck the wood with patient force. She did not stop to admire the structure. She did not spare it. She simply moved around it. Ancient water against temporary wood. A tide that had known Rome and Vikings and Armada sails now passed under British boots, French voices, wet greatcoats, and rifles held too long. The channel had seen centuries of crossings. Now she watched this narrow path of planks become a thread between defeat and survival. She breathed in. She breathed out. At one point the line stopped. No one knew why at first. Lines often stop before reasons arrive. Men shifted weight. Water moved beneath them. The wood trembled slightly as another group behind them came to a halt. A gull cried overhead. A man ahead coughed. Someone muttered about the cold. Someone else told him the cold was listening. Arthur looked down through a gap between planks. The water below was dark green and restless. Bits of foam moved around the pilings. A scrap of paper struck the wood, turned and disappeared. He thought of his sister's letter. He pressed his arm lightly against his pocket to feel it there. Still there. Enough. Morris turned his head slightly. Still got that biscuit, Arthur said. Yes. You going to eat it? Eventually. That biscuit may survive the war. It has discipline. The corporal behind them said, more than some. A smile moved through the 3 of them, small, brief, enough. The line moved again. At the far end of the mole, men boarded when ships were there. The process was not smooth. Nothing about Dunkirk was smooth. It was patient, repetitive, improvised. Men moved from planks to ship by gangways, ladders, nets and hands. A destroyer alongside the mole rose and fell with the water. Even a large ship moved under the channel's breathing. The mole shuddered when hull and fenders pressed. Orders were spoken low but firmly, one at a time. Keep moving, careful, step down, mind your hand, move along. The men crossed from wood to steel. The sound changed again. Boots on planks became boots on metal. Hollow wood became ringing deck. Salted wind became diesel. Oil, rope, wet uniforms, sweat, smoke from funnels, and the smell of a ship already carrying too many tired men. Some men turned back once toward the beach. Most did not. Looking back can become difficult when one has only just begun to leave. Arthur did not board from the mole that morning. His line stopped before the end and was redirected. That happened often. A ship filled, an order changed, a section moved aside, another group took the opening. The mole was not a promise to each man in order. It was a mechanism of need. It served the evacuation as a whole. The individual body had to accept this. Arthur stepped back with Morris and the corporal, guided by a man with a hoarse voice and a face grey with sleeplessness. They moved off the mole and onto sand again. For a moment, the return to sand felt like failure. Then the corporal said, "We're still nearer than we were." That was true, nearer by knowledge, if not by distance. Arthur looked at the mole again. Men continued onto it, 3 abreast, slow, endless. The wooden line held. Nothing unusual, just the planks, just the tide, just the waiting. Through May 27th and May 28th, the evacuation grew. Dunkirk became a place of movement and stillness at once. The beaches waited, the mole worked, the channel breathed, ships came and went, the perimeter still held. French troops and other Allied formations continued to stand inland, on roads, canals, villages, and fields that most men on the beach could not see. Their work came to the beach as distant sound, a low thump, a murmur beyond the dunes, a tremor sometimes felt through sand. The men waiting did not always know who held which road. They did not know every unit. They knew only that the beach had not yet been overrun. They knew the line still existed. They knew the water still offered a way. That knowledge was enough for the hour. Far out beyond the beach, the first civilian boats crossed from England. They did not arrive as a single shining fleet. They came in pieces, in groups, in confusion, in smoke and spray, in weather, in courage that often looked more like practical work than courage. They were not warships, they were pleasure cruisers, fishing smacks, lifeboats, Thames barges, paddle steamers, motor yachts, harbour launches, small wooden craft that had known other lives, weekend trips, fishing mornings, river traffic, summer passengers, children with sandwiches, old men in caps, tea in a cabin, ropes coiled neatly for ordinary days. Now they crossed the ancient channel toward Dunkirk. Their wooden hulls met the grey water. Their engines coughed, chugged, steadied, faltered, and continued. Some were reliable. Some argued with every wave. Some were too small for the sea given to them. The channel watched them pass, these little wooden things with civilian souls. She did not become kinder because they were small. She lifted them, dropped them, turned them, covered their bows with spray, opened grey valleys between swells, closed them again. The boats kept coming, not as heroes, as neighbours, as fishermen, as ferry crews, as yacht owners, as men who knew ropes, as teenagers too young to fully understand the old fear in older men's eyes, as old men who remembered the last war and did not speak of it. They spoke of crossing, weather, tide, engines, rope, fuel, depth, sandbanks, visibility. The practical words that keep fear in its proper place. A boat called Sundowner crossed the channel. A private motor yacht, wooden, low, familiar with quieter waters. Her owner, Charles Lightoller, had once survived a different maritime disaster and had become a man with memories the sea could not easily frighten, though perhaps nothing truly removes fear. Sundowner did not look like a warship. She looked like a boat made for family, river light, and ordinary pleasure. But she crossed. She carried men. Her small hull became part of the wide evacuation. The channel breathed around her. Another vessel, Medway Queen, a paddle steamer, came too. She had once carried passengers in ordinary service, people walking aboard with coats, bags, tickets, conversations and plans. At Dunkirk she carried soldiers, wet men, silent men, men too tired to ask where to sit. Her paddles moved through channel water. Her decks held blankets, steam, tea, salt, diesel, and the low murmur of men who had stopped trying to explain the day. Princess Elizabeth crossed as well. Mona's Isle too. Names that had belonged to schedules, piers, routes, and holiday waters now entered a different story. But the boats themselves remained boats. Wood, steel, steam, canvas, brass fittings, rope, benches, small cabins, engines with habits, decks that remembered easier passengers. They did not speak of glory. They only crossed. They carried what they could. They returned. The little ships were not an armada in the grand sense. They were boats, ordinary boats, small boats, many unsuited for the work by design, yet used by necessity. A boat does not need to understand history to carry a man across water. It only needs a hull, a crew, fuel or sail, enough depth, enough luck, and someone willing to take her out. Enough. On one small fishing boat from the English coast, a man named George Taverner stood at the wheel and watched grey water slap the bow. He was 56. He had spent much of his life with salt on his skin. He trusted weather more than official optimism. He trusted rope if he had tied it himself. He trusted his engine only after listening to it for several minutes. His boat had carried fish, nets, crates, tea, cold hands, his own irritation. Now she was crossing toward a beach full of men. Beside him stood his nephew, Alan, 17 years old, trying to look older by saying less. George noticed and did not comment. The engine worked with a steady chug. Not smooth, steady. That was enough. The cabin smelled of diesel, salt, old fish, wet wood, rope, tobacco, and the sour warmth of fear kept quiet. Spray struck the window. The channel lifted them, dropped them, lifted them again. Alan wiped water from his face. George said, "Keep your feet planted." Alan nodded. They did not speak of duty. They spoke of tide, wind, fuel, shallows, the time needed to cross. Whether the engine sounded wrong, it did not, or not wrong enough. The channel breathed in. The channel breathed out. The small boat went on. If you are still listening, you can let the boats come slowly. You do not need to count them. You do not need to follow every name. Sundowner, Medway Queen, Princess Elizabeth, Mona's Isle, fishing boats, lifeboats, barges, yachts, launches, enough. The channel carries them. The tide breathes. The line is still moving. Close your eyes again. Nothing else matters for now. Back on the beach, Arthur Bell did not yet know the names of the little ships. He saw only shapes, some close, some far, some larger vessels offshore, some small craft moving in and out, low against the water, almost swallowed by the grey. The men watched them with the quiet hunger of people looking at a road. A boat became more than wood, more than engine, more than paint. A boat became possibility. But possibility could hurt if stared at too long. So men looked, then looked down. They adjusted straps, emptied boots, checked letters, cleaned rifles, shared cigarettes, waited. The beach continued its long work. Lines formed for the mole, lines formed for boats, lines formed where men had been told to stand and no one yet knew why. At times, the order seemed clear. At others, it became tangled. A group moved east, another moved west. A man arrived with a message and lost the officer he needed. A section sat, then stood, then sat again. A corporal slept standing for a few seconds until the man beside him touched his sleeve. Nothing unusual, just the line, just the tide, just the cold. René Marchand, farther back near the perimeter for part of that day, listened to the distant sound of the evacuation, as if it were another kind of weather. He could not see the mole from where he stood. He could not see every boat, but he knew the coast was filling with movement. The French units holding ground around Dunkirk did not live inside the same waiting as the men on the beach. Their waiting had edges, roads, canals, fields, buildings, orders to remain, orders to withdraw, orders to delay, orders that changed with hours. René's tin cup hung from his pack now. The British tea from the previous day had left a faint stain inside. He had no reason to notice the stain. He noticed it anyway. Small things become visible when the mind refuses large things. A cup stain, a loose thread, a stone in the road, a torn button, a bit of paper in mud. He thought of his daughter saying papillon. He did not let the memory stay long, not because he loved it less, because he needed to keep his hands on the present. He waited. He listened. He breathed. He moved when told. Toward evening, he passed a group of British soldiers moving toward the beach. One of them had a harmonica in his pocket. René saw the silver edge. He pointed at it. The man, not understanding the gesture at first, took it out. Played 2 low notes. René nodded. The man put it away. That was their conversation. Enough. At the mole, the traffic continued. The planks became slick. Men moved more slowly where needed. One man slipped, caught himself, and was steadied by hands from both sides. No one made a speech. The hands let go when he had balance. He continued. The mole creaked. The pilings groaned. The water struck below. The wind pushed against coats. A destroyer came alongside, careful and difficult. The ship rose and fell with the channel. Lines were handled, ropes tightened. Men waited on the planks. The ship's side looked high from the mole. Steel beside wood, dark paint, salt streaks, rope ladders, nets, hands reaching down, orders spoken through wind. Men began to cross, one at a time, then more. Boots on wood, hands on rope, boots on steel. The smell changed again. Wet wood, salt water, oil, diesel, rope, smoke, sweat, wool, metal decks, cold tea, and the crowded human closeness of men beginning to believe they might leave. A soldier stepped from the mole onto the ship and stopped for half a second. A sailor behind the rail said, "Move along." The soldier moved. That half second was not disobedience. It was the body understanding that sand had become steel, that waiting had become crossing, that the beach was behind him by a few feet, though not yet behind him in memory. The ship filled. Men were directed into spaces. Stand there, move down, keep clear, sit if told. No smoking there, mind the hatch. The evacuation was not elegant. It was repetitive, practical, crowded, tired. 1,000 small corrections, 1,000 ordinary instructions given under extraordinary pressure. The mole held another line, and another, and another. The wooden structure became a rhythm in the story. Step, creak, pause, water, step, creak, wait, steel, again. Some men would later say the mole saved them. Some would remember the planks more than the ship. Some would remember the way the wood moved under their boots. Some the sound of water below. Some the face of a sailor reaching down. Some only the order to keep moving. Memory chooses strangely. A man might forget a date and remember a nailhead. Forget a route and remember the smell of wet rope. Forget a commander's name and remember the feel of a stranger's hand closing around his wrist. At Dunkirk, the small details held the large event. A nail, a rope, a cup, a stone, a plank, a ladder, a line, enough. Night returned again to the beach, not suddenly. The grey day lowered, the channel darkened, the wind cooled, the sand changed underfoot. Cold moved upward through boots and into the body. Men wrapped greatcoats tighter. Those who had blankets shared edges. Small fires appeared in scattered places where there was fuel enough to make one. The smoke stayed low. It smelled of wet wood, paper, oil, wool, tobacco, salt, diesel, and tea brewed in tin cups. A man burned a letter he had decided not to risk losing. He did not watch it long. Another man heated water in a small blackened tin and called it tea with the kind of confidence only tired men can manage. A third man slept with both hands folded over his rifle. The stars appeared through breaks in cloud, clear, indifferent. The channel turned black except for pale disturbances in the shallows. Where boots moved through water, faint light sometimes broke and vanished. Phosphorescence, perhaps. A small ghostly shine in the dark. Men noticed it without comment. The sea had enough mysteries of her own. Arthur sat near a low fire with Morris, the corporal, and 2 men from another unit. The fire gave more light than heat. Still, they held their hands toward it. The corporal had removed one boot. Sand fell out. He shook the boot again. More sand. He looked into it as if personally betrayed. Morris said, "You could plant potatoes in that." The corporal said, "If we had potatoes, I would not waste them on footwear." One of the other men opened a tin of something and passed it around. No one asked what it was. Food did not always benefit from identification. Arthur took a small amount with 2 fingers. 8. Salt. Grease. Metal. Hunger made it acceptable. The fire cracked softly. Far off, engines moved in the dark. Some aircraft high above, only a low drone that came and went. Some boat engines nearer the shore. Some vehicle sounds inland. The beach listened to all of them. The men heard gulls even at night sometimes, waves, mess tins, boots in sand, coughs, whispers, distant guns, a small boat chugging through dark water, rope pulled over wood, the mole creaking, men murmuring in lines, the tide moving pebbles, the channel breathing in, the channel breathing out. Nothing unusual, just the tide, just the line, just the cold. George Taverner's small fishing boat reached the waters off Dunkirk after a crossing that made his nephew Alan quieter than before. The beach was darker than Alan expected. Not empty, not still, but darker. Scattered fires, shadows of men, dark forms of ships, the mole in the distance, water moving between them and the shallows. The old boat smelled of diesel, salt, wet rope, fish memory, smoke from the coast, damp wool, and the fear of a boy pretending to be a man. George looked at the beach. then at the water, then at the sky. He said, "We take who we can." Alan nodded. The boat moved in carefully. Depth mattered. Sandbanks mattered. Tide mattered. The channel was not a paved road. She shifted and breathed. She gave passage in moments, not permanently. A small boat near shore must read water like handwriting. Dark patches, breaking wave, pull, lift. The engine chugged, coughed once. George listened sharply. The engine recovered. He said nothing. That was praise. They came close enough for men to wade. A soldier in the water held a rope. Another helped guide the boat. Men approached slowly, chest deep in cold water. Rifles and packs lifted when they still had them. Some had left heavy equipment behind. Some carried only themselves. Water dragged at uniforms. Wet wool became heavy. Boots filled. Hands reached. Calloused hands from the boat. Cold hands from the sea. One man was pulled aboard and sat immediately, breathing hard. Another followed. Then another. Alan gripped wrists and sleeves. He did not ask names. There was no time. A man's sleeve became enough. A hand became enough. A shoulder. A belt. A rope. A life belt. A net. A step. A space on deck. Enough. The small boat settled lower as men came aboard. George watched the waterline. Not too many. Then one more. Then no more. A man still in the water looked up. George met his eyes. There was no good way to refuse the next man. There was also no kindness in sinking the boat. He said, "Next one." The soldier in the water nodded. No accusation, only waiting. The boat backed carefully, turned and moved out toward a larger vessel. Men sat close together. No one cheered. No one spoke for a while. The engine chugged. Water slapped the hull. The channel lifted them, dropped them. The beach receded a little, then returned as the boat moved along shore. The crossing from beach to ship could feel as long as the channel itself. One soldier on George's boat held a stone in his fist. Alan noticed. The man opened his hand. A small pale stone from the beach lay in his palm. "Don't know why I picked it up," the soldier said. Alan said, "It's yours now." The soldier closed his fingers again. That was enough. On the mole, more men moved through the night. The structure had its own darkness. Lamps were few. Shadows shifted. Men followed the sound of boots and the shoulders ahead. The water below was black. The pilings groaned in darkness. A destroyer's shape loomed near the end, then moved away. Another ship came later. In between, the line waited on wood. Waiting on the mole felt different from waiting on sand. The beach was wide. The mole was narrow. On the beach, a man could sit, shift, lie down, step aside. On the mole, a man belonged to the line completely. He could not wander, could not spread out, could not easily turn away. The wood held him in order. The channel beneath reminded him why he accepted it. Arthur returned to the mole later that night, or perhaps it was early morning. Time had loosened. The corporal said it was after midnight. Morris said midnight had lost legal authority. Arthur believed both. They approached the wooden entrance again. The military policeman was still there, or another man exactly as tired. 3 abreast. Keep moving. Mind the gaps. Close up. Not too close. Wait. Move. Arthur stepped onto the planks again. This time he did not feel the same surprise. Wood, water, wind, line. He knew the rhythm now. Step, creak, pause, step, creak, wait. The mole shuddered under the weight of men. The channel breathed below. At a pause, Arthur looked to the side. The beach stretched away in darkness, dotted with fires. Thousands of men were still there. Some standing, some sitting, some sleeping, some moving toward the water, some waiting for the next instruction. The beach looked almost quiet from the mole. A strange thing. Distance softens crowds. It turns thousands into texture. The low murmur of voices became almost like the sea itself. Arthur thought of the garage in Kent, the smell of oil, the bell over the door, rain on the roof, his sister's letter, his mother saving tea. He did not let the thoughts go too far. The line moved. He moved with it. On a small paddle steamer farther out, men were being taken aboard from boats and from the mole when possible. A deckhand named William Hodge carried cups of tea between groups with the grave precision of someone handling fragile cargo. He was not a soldier. He had spent years around passengers, ropes, schedules, engines, and complaints about weather. Now the passengers did not complain much. That worried him more than complaint would have. He handed a tin cup to a soldier whose hand shook from cold. The soldier took it. "Thanks," William nodded. The tea was too weak, too hot at first, too small. It was still tea. Tea can become a whole country when a man has been cold long enough. The soldier held the cup and breathed steam. He did not drink immediately. He only held it. Warm enough, safe enough for now. William moved on. Cups, blankets, directions. "Keep clear there. Sit down here. Mind your feet. Do not block the ladder. A vessel carrying exhausted men becomes another kind of waiting room. Not the beach, not home, between." The channel held them still. She had not released them yet. On the English side, more boats prepared to cross. Rivercraft that had known the Thames, motor yachts that had known summer, lifeboats that had known drills, fishing boats that had known dawn and nets, barges that had known cargo. Some were crewed by naval personnel, some by civilians, some by men who had never imagined their boat leaving familiar waters in such a way. They checked fuel, ropes, engines, weather, tide. They packed blankets, tea, water, a few sandwiches. Some brought tools, some brought nothing but habit and nerve. A teenager tied a line too loosely and was corrected by an old man with no sharpness in his voice. "Again?" The boy tied it again. "Better." The old man nodded. That was enough. The little ships were not a single thing. They were many small decisions. One boat, then another. One owner, one crew, one engine starting, one rope cast off, one bow turning toward France. The channel watched them. The tide breathed. The crossing waited. If you are still here, you are already inside the rhythm. The mole creaks, the boats cross, the tide breathes, the line moves. You do not need to hold the whole evacuation. Only one plank, one rope, one cup, one breath. That is enough. Close your eyes again. The story will keep moving softly. By the next grey morning, the beach seemed both emptier and still full. Men had left. More had arrived. Lines had changed. Fires had burned down. Boots had carved new paths through sand. The tide had erased what it could and failed to erase the rest. A helmet lay half buried near the waterline. A greatcoat hung over a broken railing. A tin cup had been pressed into the sand, then filled by rain or seawater. A pack of cards lay scattered near a dune, damp and useless. A photograph had blown against a piece of wood and stuck there until a passing soldier picked it up. He looked at it. A woman and 2 children. Not his. He placed it in a dry part of a broken box, as if the right man might somehow find it. This did not solve anything. It was enough to do. René Marchand reached the beach again for a short time with men from his unit. He stood near Arthur's line without knowing Arthur. Their roads had crossed only as thousands of roads crossed at Dunkirk. René looked at the mole. Arthur looked at the channel. Maurice looked for a cigarette he no longer had. The corporal looked at his pocket watch and said nothing. Peter Gray cleaned his rifle again, somewhere farther back. Sergeant Ellis saved his matches. George Taverner's boat moved somewhere between shore and ship, engine still arguing but alive. The channel saw all of them. She saw without choosing. She breathed in, she breathed out. A distant aircraft engine came through the cloud low enough to make men look up, high enough to remain a shape more than a presence. The sound passed, then faded. Later the sand trembled. A vibration moved through the beach. Men lowered themselves without needing explanation, then rose again when the moment passed. No one described it. No one needed to. The focus returned to the line, the tide, the boats, the mole, the waiting. Nothing unusual, just the tremor, just the sand, just the return to standing. The evacuation continued. Men went by mole, men went by boat, men waded into cold water and waited there. They held rifles above their heads when they still had them. They held packs high. They lifted helmets. They moved slowly because water makes every step important. Wet uniforms became heavy. Greatcoats dragged. Boots filled. Cold climbed the body. Men in the shallows became darker shapes against grey water. From the beach, They looked like a line walking into the sea. From the sea, they looked like men refusing to disappear. A small boat came in, then another. Hands reached, ropes tightened, a net dropped, a man climbed, another slipped and was steadied, a third passed a rifle up before climbing himself. The process repeated, line after line, hour after hour, day after day. It became almost hypnotic. Wait, move, wade, reach, climb, sit, cross, return, again. The channel carried them in waves, like breathing, in and out, in and out. At the mole, Arthur's line reached the far section by afternoon. The wood there moved more underfoot, or perhaps he was more aware of it. A ship had just left. Another was not yet fully in place. Men waited on planks. Wind moved along the narrow walkway. The channel struck below. A man near Arthur began humming the harmonica tune from the beach, though the harmonica itself was elsewhere. Morris whispered, "That tune's following us." The corporal said, "Better than some things." Arthur looked at the water. A small boat crossed below and away, loaded with men. Its engine chugged hard. Spray struck the bow. A civilian at the stern held a line. He looked too old for this work, or perhaps only tired. The boat moved toward a larger vessel. Arthur watched until the line ahead shifted. Then he stopped watching. The military policeman near the far section raised one arm. Wait. The men waited. A destroyer's dark side approached carefully. The ship seemed too large beside the fragile wood. Lines were thrown. Men on the mole handled them. The structure shuddered. The wood complained. The channel pushed. The ship settled close enough. Orders moved along the line, not loud, clear, ready. One group forward, then another. Arthur felt the line begin to move. His hands tightened on his rifle, then relaxed. Morris glanced back once. The corporal placed his pocket watch deeper in his coat. The three men moved. Step, creak, step, creak, wood, then a gap, then a hand, then steel. A sailor grabbed Arthur's sleeve and guided him across. The grip was hard, practical, impersonal, and saving. Arthur's boot hit the steel deck. After so many hours on sand and wood, steel felt unreal. He moved because someone told him to. Down, along, clear the way, sit there, keep moving. He sat where directed against a metal surface with other men pressed close. Morris sat beside him. The corporal arrived a moment later. For several seconds, none of them spoke. The ship smelled of oil, rope, wet uniforms, diesel, metal, salt, sweat, old paint, and tea somewhere out of reach. Arthur touched his pocket. The letter was still there. The biscuit too. He'd carried both from sand to wood to steel. It seemed important. He took out the biscuit, looked at it, broke it into 3 pieces, gave one to Morris, one to the corporal, kept one. They ate in silence, dry, sandy. Enough. The destroyer filled. Men stood, sat, crouched, leaned, waited. No one had room to be comfortable. Comfort belonged to another country. This was departure. Not yet rescue in the full sense. Only departure. The ship pulled away when it could. The mole moved back from them. The planks became a line. The line became a shape. The shape became part of the port. The beach beyond still held thousands. Arthur saw the sand, the dunes, the low fires, the lines of men, the water, the small boats, the grey sky. He felt no triumph, only exhaustion and a careful disbelief. A man can begin leaving and still feel left behind. The channel waited ahead. The ship would not take them all the way to sleep at once. Not yet. There would be crossing, crowding, cold, waiting again. But Arthur was off the sand. For the first time in a long while, his boots were not sinking. That was enough. On the beach, the line closed behind him. Other men moved forward. The mole did not rest. The small boats did not rest. The channel did not rest. The tide came in. The tide went out. The evacuation continued, practical and slow, human and repetitive, made from wood, rope, water, steel, diesel, tea, wet wool, and the hands of strangers. By dusk, the channel had darkened again. Boats still moved, some toward France, some toward England, some between beach and larger ships. Their lights were low. Their engines made different sounds. Some chugged steadily, some coughed, some rattled. Some seemed to run on stubbornness alone. The channel lifted them all. She was grey by day, black by night, brown near shore, green under cloud, steel under wind, ancient beneath every crossing. She watched the small boats pass with their civilian souls in wooden bodies. She watched the mole hold. She watched the beach empty slightly, then fill again. She watched the men wait. She watched them sleep in fragments. She watched them carry stones, letters, cups, rifles, blankets, and the last warmth of cigarettes. Nothing unusual, just the tide, just the line, just the cold, just the boats, just the old water breathing. The second block rests here, not yet in England, not yet in the quiet after return, only in the movement between sand and sea, on the mole, in the boats, in the first crossings through grey water, with Arthur sitting on a crowded deck, biscuit crumbs in his hand, with George Taverner's fishing boat turning back toward the beach, with René Marchand listening to the coast from behind the dunes, with the East Mole still creaking under another line of men, with the channel breathing in and breathing out. Enough for now. Night on the Dunkirk beaches was colder than men expected. Not winter cold, not the hard inland cold of frost and frozen fields, a sea cold, a wet cold, a cold that entered from below through sand, a cold that entered from the side through wind, a cold that entered sleeves, collars, cuffs, blankets, boots, and the damp cloth of greatcoats. During the day, the beach had been grey. At night, it became black and silver, black where the channel held the sky, silver where small waves folded over themselves in the dark, black where the dunes rose behind the men, silver where fires caught the edges of helmets and cups, black where the water deepened, silver where boots disturbed the shallows, and a faint pale glow moved under the surface. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out. The tide moved slowly as if the whole sea were sleeping lightly, in and out, in and out. The men lay where they could, some on open sand, some behind low ridges near the dunes, some close to abandoned vehicles, some under pieces of canvas, some wrapped in greatcoats, some sharing blankets without discussing it, some sitting with their backs against packs, some standing because the line might move, some half asleep with rifles across their knees, some too tired to remove their boots, some unable to stop feeling the sand inside them. A man could be exhausted and still unable to sleep. Sleep on the beach came like the boats, in fragments, in small arrivals, in short crossings, 10 minutes, 3 minutes, half an hour if the body won. Then a voice, a footstep, the line moving, the tide changing, a distant engine, a hand on the shoulder, up, move, wait, sleep again if possible. He waited, he listened, he breathed, he slept when he could, he woke, he waited again. Along the beach, the low fires burned in scattered places. They were not bright enough to make the night warm, only bright enough to mark small circles of human need. Men burned broken wood, scraps of crate, paper, abandoned packing. Sometimes letters that could not be carried. Sometimes equipment that had become too heavy for the road home. The smoke stayed low when the wind pressed it down. It moved through the beach with the smell of salt, wet wool, wood smoke, diesel, tobacco, cold tea, damp canvas, boot leather, and sand heating briefly before going cold again. A tin cup passed from one hand to another. Tea, if there was tea. Hot water, if there was no tea. Something warm enough to hold. Warmth did not have to be much. A cup held in both hands, a match cupped against wind, a blanket edge shared with a stranger, a body close enough to block the draught, a low fire giving light more than heat. Enough. On the crowded destroyer that had taken him from the mole, Arthur Bell sat among men he did not know, and men he did. Morris sat to his left. The corporal sat somewhere close enough that Arthur could hear him breathing. The ship had pulled away from Dunkirk, but not towards safety in any simple sense. It moved through darkness and ordered confusion. Men were packed along the deck and in spaces below. Some stood, some crouched, some sat with knees drawn up, some leaned against metal and slept at once. No one had enough room, no one expected it. The deck smelled of diesel, wet wool, oil, rope, sweat, salt, smoke, tea, metal, and exhaustion. The ship's motion was different from the beach. The beach held men still. The ship moved beneath them. The channel lifted the hull, lowered it, lifted it again. Arthur felt the movement in his stomach, then in his knees, then in the tired parts of his back. He had imagined that leaving the sand would feel like relief. It did. But relief came slowly. The body did not trust it at first. The mind remained on the beach, still waiting in line, still feeling sand in the boot, still watching the mole. He touched his pocket. The letter was there. The biscuit was gone now, divided into 3. The crumbs remained in his palm. He closed his fingers around them for a moment, then brushed them away carefully. Morris had already fallen asleep sitting up, his head tilted forward. The corporal opened his pocket watch once, looked at it, then closed it with a soft click. Arthur said, "Still working?" The corporal said, "Better than I am." Then he closed his eyes. A sailor moved among them with a kettle and cups. Not enough for all at once, enough for some. He handed Arthur a tin cup with something hot inside, tea perhaps, or water that had passed near tea. Arthur did not ask. He held it. The warmth entered his fingers slowly, then his palms, then somewhere deeper. He took one sip. It tasted of metal, smoke, salt, and almost tea. It was enough. The ship continued. Behind it, Dunkirk remained in darkness. The beach still held lines of men. The mole still creaked. The small boats still moved. George Taverner's fishing boat was already turning back toward shore. He had taken men out to a larger vessel, watched them climb up rope and ladder, then looked at his nephew Alan. Neither needed to say they were going back. The boat's work was not finished because one load had been carried. George listened to the engine. The engine chugged, coughed, settled. Not healthy, not dying. Enough. Alan sat near the bow for a moment, hands on his knees, wet to the elbows. His sleeves clung to him. His fingers were red from water and rope. He had pulled men aboard by wrists, straps, belts, and coats. He had learned quickly that a man in cold water becomes heavy in a different way, not because the man is unwilling, because wet wool holds the sea, because boots fill, because exhaustion removes help from the body. A hand on a sleeve becomes everything. Alan looked at the dark line of the beach, small fires, shapes of men, a glow from somewhere near the port, the mole in the distance, still a thin, dark stroke against black water. George said, "Ready." It was not a question. Alan stood. The boat turned toward France again. The channel met them without welcome. She lifted them, dropped them, sprayed the bow, pushed against the hull. Not cruel, not kind, only herself. The boat went on. Near the dunes, René Marchand slept for a short time with his back against a low bank of sand and his tin cup tied to his pack. He had not meant to sleep. He had been listening, to the distant coast, to orders moving somewhere in the dark, to French voices, British voices, engines, the wind, the sea. Then sleep took him without permission. He dreamed of his daughter saying papillon. In the dream, she pointed at gulls over the sea and called them butterflies. When he woke, the gulls were gone. The night remained. His neck hurt. His hands were cold. The tin cup knocked softly against his pack when he shifted. He touched it to quiet the sound. A man beside him whispered, "You slept." René said, "A little." "Good." "Yes." That was all. A little sleep was enough. A little warmth, a little tea, a little silence. Enough. The nights at Dunkirk did not belong to one army alone. They belonged to anyone waiting near the coast. British soldiers on sand, French troops holding roads and canals, drivers sleeping beside empty vehicles, sailors on destroyers and minesweepers, civilian crews crossing grey water, men on the East Mole standing in line above the channel, men in small boats with hands raw from rope, men at English harbours preparing to go out again, men in offices writing names and numbers, men at stations waiting for trains. The evacuation was not a single motion. It was many small motions repeated until they became a tide of their own. Wait, move, wade, reach, climb, sit, cross, land, return, again. The channel breathed in. The channel breathed out. At first light, the beach appeared again. Grey from sky to water, grey clouds, grey sea, grey sand, grey faces, greatcoats dark with damp, boots heavy, helmets dull, rifles streaked with sand and oil, Tin cups tied to packs, blankets rolled or lost. Letters still folded, cigarettes counted, a pocket watch opened under a pale morning. Nothing unusual, just the tide, just the line, just the cold. The evacuation took on a rhythm that made time strange. Men who had waited through the night moved forward at dawn. Men who had arrived at dawn waited through the day. Men who had been on the mole returned to the sand if the ship filled. Men who reached a boat found themselves waiting again at the side of a larger ship. Men who reached a deck waited for the crossing. Men who crossed the channel waited to disembark. Waiting did not end. It changed rooms, sand, wood, water, steel, harbour, train, blanket, bed. Each stage carried its own waiting. On the beach, Peter Gray cleaned his rifle again, though it had no business being cleaned so often. The cloth was dirty, the oil was nearly gone. Sand had entered every place he had tried to remove it from. Sergeant Ellis watched him for a while and said nothing. Then he held out a cigarette. Peter looked up. "I thought you had 2 left." "I did. That is one." "Observation suits you." Peter took it. The sergeant struck a match inside his cupped hand. The flame lived for a few seconds. Enough. They shared the cigarette with another man, who had not spoken since dawn. The smoke moved sideways in the wind. The rifle lay across Peter's knees, partly cleaned, never clean. Farther down the beach, a man played cards with a deck too damp to shuffle properly. The cards stuck together. The game made little sense. It continued anyway. A pack of cards can become a place. A small square of attention, a way to sit without staring at the sea, a way to speak without speaking of fear. One man played a card and said, "That's yours." Another said, "It isn't." The first said, "It is now." The third man laughed softly. Enough. A list of sounds moved along the morning. The cry of gulls, the lap of waves against the sand, the cough of engines offshore, the clank of mess tins, the whisper of prayers, the scratch of pencils, boots pulling free of wet sand, rifles being wiped with cloth, the creak of the mole, the chug of small boat engines, the slap of water against wooden hulls, the low murmur of thousands of voices blending into one sound like the sea itself. If you are still here, you can let the rhythm carry you. You do not need to follow every man. You do not need to know every boat. The line is moving. The tide is breathing. The channel is carrying what she can. That is enough. Close your eyes again. The evacuation continued through May 29th, then May 30th, then May 31st. The exact dates mattered to those keeping records. To men on the beach, they often became morning, day, night, tide, hunger, movement, sleep. The large number would come later. About 338,000 men evacuated by the end. British, French, others from Allied forces, but numbers are difficult to hold on a cold beach. A man holds a cup, a rifle, a rope, a photograph, a friend's sleeve, a stone from the sand. A number comes later when someone sits at a desk and tries to count what the tide carried. The evacuation itself remained methodical in its own rough way, not smooth, not perfect, not free from confusion, but continuous. The East Mole kept working, the beaches kept feeding lines into the shallows, the small boats kept bringing men from shore to ships. Larger vessels carried them across. Civilian boats crossed and returned. Naval craft moved where they were ordered. The channel accepted all of them and made none of it easy. Men waded into the water. At first, the cold shocked the feet, then the ankles, then the calves, then the thighs. The body learned the water by force. Uniform cloth darkened, greatcoats dragged, boots filled and became heavy. A man holding his rifle above his head felt foolish for a moment, then too cold to feel foolish. The water rose to the waist, sometimes higher. Men held packs above them when packs remained. They held helmets. They held letters inside inner pockets and hoped paper could survive damp. They held one another when the sand beneath the water shifted. A man could not see his own feet in the churned brown-green shallows. He trusted the line. He trusted the hand ahead. He trusted the boat. He trusted the water only because there was no other way. George Taverner's boat came in again near a line where men had already been standing in the water too long. Their faces looked pale under helmets. The wind had roughened the surface. Allen threw a rope. A soldier caught it, missed, caught again, hands hauled. The boat edged close enough, not too close, and the bottom would take them. Too far, and men would be lost to exhaustion before boarding. George judged distance with the anger of a man who did not trust luck. He used the engine, the tide, the rope, his own memory of water. "Now," he said. Alan reached down. The first soldier came aboard with help from 2 others, then the second, then a third. The deck filled quickly. One man carried a tin cup tied to his belt. It struck the boat's side with a small sound. Tin against wood. Another carried a helmet half full of seawater and did not seem to know it. Alan tried to take it. The man resisted, then looked at the helmet as if surprised. He poured the water out. The helmet became lighter. So did his face, only slightly. Enough. A man in the water handed up a folded scarf, then climbed after it. Another pushed a younger soldier ahead of him. The younger soldier looked back. The older one said, "Go." No speech, no drama, only the order of need. George watched the boat settle lower. "Enough," he said. Alan looked at the men still in the water. George said it again, quieter. "Enough." The boat backed away. The men left in the water waited for the next one. Nothing unusual, just the line, just the boat, just the cold. On the mole, the same rhythm continued. Arthur was no longer there, but the mole did not know his absence. It held other men, other boots, other letters, other hunger. The planks creaked, the pilings groaned, the channel struck below, a ship came in, a ship left, the line advanced, then stopped, then advanced again. The mole became a breathing thing too. Not alive like the channel, not ancient, a temporary creature. Wood, rope, nail, pressure, fear, patience. It held its breath when ships came alongside. It exhaled when they pulled away. It shivered under weight. It carried men toward steel. It held and held and held. A French soldier named Luc Moreau stepped onto the mole late one afternoon with a group that had been moved from a position near the perimeter. He had not slept properly in 2 nights. His hands were black at the nails. His left sleeve was torn. In his pocket he carried a small photograph of his wife standing beside a bicycle. The photograph was bent at one corner. He also carried a smooth stone he had picked up near a canal days earlier. Not from the beach, from inland. A different place. A place that was already behind him. He stepped onto the wet planks and felt the channel below. He had grown up far from the coast. Water in such width did not comfort him. He watched the back of the man ahead. That was easier. Step, creak, pause, step, creak, wait. The man ahead whispered something in French. Luke did not catch it. The wind took the words. Below, water moved around the pilings. Above, gulls cried. A distant engine passed behind cloud. The mole trembled. A British sailor at the far end guided men toward a vessel. The sailor said something Luke did not understand, then pointed. Pointing was enough. Men crossed, wood to steel, French voices, British hands, cold water, salt wind, the channel breathing under all of it. At night, the beach fires became more important. Men who were not yet moving toward boats gathered near whatever heat existed. Tea was brewed badly and gratefully. A tin cup could pass through 5 hands before being rinsed. No one cared. Wet wool steamed near small flames. Greatcoats dried at the edges, then dampened again in the wind. Socks were removed, shaken, warmed, put back on half dry because half dry was better than wet. Boots were emptied. Sand came out. More sand remained. A man with a pencil stub wrote on the back of an old envelope. Another watched the fire without blinking. A third hummed the harmonica tune without the harmonica. The real harmonica player had been taken off earlier perhaps, or moved to another part of the beach, or still there, silent now. The tune stayed. Some sounds remain after their source is gone. The low murmur of men, the tide pulling at pebbles, the crackle of small fires, the clank of tin cups, the far cough of engines, the whisper of prayer, the scratch of pencil, the creak of leather, the shifting of sand, the soft groan of the mole, the channel breathing in, the channel breathing out. René Marchand reached the beach again under darkness. His unit had been moved, stopped, redirected, then held for hours near a road. Now he stood near the waterline and saw the small boats more clearly. They looked too small. That was the first thought. Too small for the channel, too small for the men, too small for the weight of everything behind them. But they moved. Their low shapes appeared and vanished between dark swells. Some carried men outward, some returned empty, some came in with ropes ready. Their engines made different voices, chugging, coughing, buzzing, knocking, steady, unsteady, steady again. René listened. He had no language for these English boats and their crews, but he understood practical courage when it came without speech. One small boat came so close that he saw an old man at the stern wearing a cap pulled low. The man's face was hidden by shadow. His hands moved with certainty. He did not look like a poster. He looked cold, tired, busy. That was better. René held his tin cup and thought of his daughter saying papillon. The word moved through him softly, then moved away. He waited. On a vessel crossing toward England, Arthur Bell sat pressed between Morris and a man from another unit who slept with his head against Arthur's shoulder. Arthur did not move him. There was nowhere else for the man's head to go. The channel rolled beneath them. The ship's engines worked steadily. The deck vibrated. Men slept in every possible posture, some with cups in their hands, some with mouths open, some with helmets tilted over eyes, some with blankets around shoulders, some still wet from wading. The wind over the deck was cold, not beach cold, moving cold, sea cold. Arthur had been given a blanket. He did not know by whom. It smelled of damp wool, salt, and storage. It was not large enough. It was enough. Morris woke and said, "We moving?" Arthur said, "Yes." "Which way?" "Better way." Morris accepted this and slept again. The corporal did not sleep. He held the pocket watch in one hand, closed, as if the object itself mattered more than the time. Arthur said, "You should sleep." The corporal said, "I am conducting an inspection of my eyelids." Successful. Mixed results. The two men sat in silence. The channel moved under them. England remained invisible. Dunkirk behind them was invisible now too. This was the strange middle. No longer on the beach. Not yet home. Water under the hull. Grey dark around them. A ship carrying exhausted men through a night that seemed too large. The channel was beneath them. Ancient. Cold. Patient. She had watched them wait on her shore. Now she carried them. Not gently, not cruelly, only as water carries what floats upon it. The boat rose, fell, rose again. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out. Back at Dunkirk, more men entered the water. The process became repetitive enough to feel almost unreal. A line formed. The line moved. Men stepped into shallows. They lifted rifles, packs, helmets. Water climbed. A boat came in. Rope thrown. Hands reached. One aboard. Another. Enough. The boat turned. The line waited for the next. The tide advanced. The tide withdrew. Again. In this repetition, fear changed shape. It did not vanish. It became work. Step. Hold. Reach. Climb. Sit. Make room. Drink if offered. Sleep if possible. Wake when told. Move again. You're still listening, but your breathing is slower now. The line is still moving. The tide is still breathing. The boats are still crossing. Nothing else matters. Let the repetition soften. Wait. Move. Wade. Reach. Climb. Sit. Cross. Return. Again. Enough. By the later days of the evacuation, the beaches showed the marks of everything that had passed through them. Footprints layered over footprints. Tracks cut by vehicles that would not leave. Piles of equipment. Empty tins. Broken crates. Straps. Paper. Shell cases left without meaning to the men waiting. Blankets abandoned because they were too wet to carry. Boot prints filled by tide water. Stones moved from one place to another by hands that did not know why they picked them up. The tide erased some of it. Not all. The sea is patient, but not miraculous. It pulled at the sand, smoothed edges, filled hollows, took small things, returned others. A child's bucket near Malo-les-Bains remained half-buried. A sign leaned. A cafe chair lay on its side. The ordinary seaside world remained beneath the military one, like a memory under a blanket. The channel watched. The mole held. The small boats worked. The perimeter continued long enough. Men left by the tens, then hundreds, then thousands. A clerk somewhere would count later. A record would say approximately 338,000 men evacuated. But on the beach, no one felt the total. They felt the man ahead, the man behind, the water at the knees, the rope in the hand, the deck under the boot, the cup warming the fingers, the blanket on the shoulders. Enough. George Taverner's boat made another run in darkness, then another in grey morning. By then, Alan no longer tried to look older. He looked tired enough to be believed. His hands had rope burns, his sleeves were stiff with salt. He had learned how to brace his feet, how to catch a wrist, how to judge when a man needed pulling, and when pulling would drag both of them wrong. He had learned that fear could sit in the stomach while the hands still worked. George watched him once and nodded. Alan did not see. The boat came under the side of a larger vessel. Men were transferred. Rope ladder, net, hands. A sailor above shouted directions, not loud, clear. One man climbed slowly, another passed up a helmet before climbing. Another lost a boot and watched it float away, then laughed once, oddly. Perhaps because the boot had escaped before him. Perhaps because laughter came out when nothing else could. Alan saw the boot drift near the hull, then vanish into dark water. The channel took it. Nothing unusual, just a boot, just water, just the next man climbing. René Marchand finally moved into a line nearer the water with other French soldiers. He did not know whether the boat would come for his group or another. He did not ask. Questions could spend strength without buying answers. His tin cup was tied securely. His photograph remained inside his coat. His stone from the canal sat in his pocket. He stepped when the line stepped, stopped when it stopped. The water touched his boots, cold. Then the wave pulled back. A British soldier beside him looked at the cup tied to his pack. "Tea," the British soldier said, pointing. René smiled faintly. "They." The British soldier nodded as if a diplomatic treaty had been completed. They stood in the same line, different languages, same cold water. Enough. The channel moved around their boots. The tide pulled sand from beneath their soles. Ahead, a boat approached. Its engine coughed, then steadied. A rope came through the air and fell short. A man waded forward and caught it. Hands tightened. The boat came nearer. René stepped deeper. The cold rose fast. Boots, calves, knees, thighs. He breathed once through his teeth. The photograph inside his coat remained dry enough. For now. Enough. When he reached the side, an English hand reached down. René took it. The grip was hard. No shared words, no need. Hand to wrist, wrist to boat, water to wood, the channel beneath. René climbed, sat, breathed. The British soldier with the word tea came after him. They sat near each other, dripping seawater onto the deck. The soldier pointed to the cup tied to René's pack again. "Tea later," René said. "Oui." That was enough. The night after that was long on every side of the water. On the beach, men still waited. On the mole, men still filed forward. On the small boats, crews crossed and returned. On the larger ships, decks filled with wet uniforms and silence. In English harbours, people prepared blankets, tea, trains, and space. The war would continue, but not in that exact moment. That exact moment belonged to crossing, to taking men off sand and placing them on wood, then steel, then water, then another shore. The channel carried them wave by wave. She did not hurry. She did not pause. She breathed. In and out, in and out. On one crowded vessel, Arthur finally slept properly for the first time in days. Not long, not deeply, but deeply enough that his head dropped forward and the cup in his hand nearly slipped. The corporal took the cup and set it beside him. Maurice slept with the blanket over one shoulder and one boot still wet. The man leaning against Arthur's shoulder slept too. All around them, men slept in rows, clusters, corners, against railings, beside hatches, under coats, under nothing. The deck rose and fell. The engines worked. The channel moved. The night held them between two countries, Dunkirk behind, England ahead. But the white cliffs were not yet visible in this part of the story. Not yet. For now, there is only water. Grey-black under the night, cold under the hull, ancient under every name. The next part will bring the crossing to its end. The cliffs through mist, the docks, the tea, the blankets, the trains moving through green English countryside, The letters written home, "I am safe, but not yet. For now, stay with the channel. Stay with the boats moving through darkness. Stay with the men sleeping where they can. Stay with the mole still creaking behind them. Stay with George turning back once more. Stay with Renee on the small boat, hands wrapped around his tin cup. Stay with Arthur on the deck, finally asleep. Stay with the old water breathing." The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out. The boats moved, the men slept when they could, and the tide, patient and indifferent, continued pulling at the sand of Dunkirk. The crossing did not feel like rescue at first. It felt like movement, cold movement, crowded movement, a deck under tired bodies, an engine working in the dark, the channel lifting the hull, lowering it, lifting it again. Dunkirk had faded behind them, but not inside them. The beach was still there, in the boots, in the cuffs, in the folds of coats, in the scratches on metal cups, in the sand stuck to wet socks, in the taste of salt and smoke, in the way men kept waiting even after the boat had left. Arthur Bell woke on the crowded deck with his head against a stranger's shoulder. For a moment he did not know where he was. Not the sand, not the mole, not England, the middle, the grey middle of the channel. The air was cold and wet. A blanket lay over his knees, though he did not remember receiving it. Morris slept beside him, face turned down, one hand still wrapped around the strap of his pack. The corporal was awake. He held his pocket watch closed in his palm, not looking at it, only holding it. The ship moved under them, slowly enough to feel heavy, fast enough to be leaving. Around them, men sat close together, wrapped in greatcoats, blankets, scarves, and damp silence. Some slept, some stared at the deck, some held tin cups, some had lost helmets, some had lost packs, some had kept letters dry, some had not. A few whispered, most did not. The crossing had its own list of sounds. The engine beat, the slap of water against the hull, the wind over wet coats, the clink of a tin cup, the soft cough of a sleeping man, rope creaking, boots scraping on steel, a sailor's low instruction, the channel rising and falling beneath everything. Nothing unusual, just the water, just the cold, just the waiting moved onto a deck. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out. She carried them away from France, not kindly, not cruelly, only steadily. The water was grey-green when morning came. Under the night, it had been black. At dawn, it became a wide surface of shifting colour. Grey near the ship, green where the swell lifted, brown in the wake when oil and sand and old water mixed, silver where pale light touched the tops of small waves. The sky was low, clouds stretched from one edge of the sea to the other. The horizon seemed to move whenever the ship rose. Men looked toward it, then looked down. It was hard to look too long at a place that might become home. The channel had watched men waiting in her shallows. Now she watched them sit on decks wrapped in blankets, holding cups of tea too weak to taste of much. She had seen crossings before: Romans, Vikings, fishermen, ferries, merchants, refugees, soldiers, families. She remembered none of them in words. She remembered them in tides, in salt, in the old rhythm of water between two lands. She separated, she carried, she released. The small boats moved among the larger shapes, some returning toward England, some turning back toward Dunkirk, some moving from one ship to another, wooden hulls, wet ropes, engines coughing, spray on windows, civilian hands stiff around wheels and lines. The little ships were tired too, if boats can be tired. Their engines sounded rougher after hours of work. Their deck smelled of diesel, salt, wet wool, old paint, rope, tea, and men who had brought the beach aboard with them. George Taverner stood at the wheel of his fishing boat with red eyes and a jaw that had forgotten how to relax. Alan sat near the bow for a few minutes, then stood again when another line needed handling. He had not slept. He had stopped counting crossings. He had stopped counting men. Counting was for later, for someone with a desk, for someone with dry paper. For now there was only the next boatload, the next rope, the next hand, the next man helped over the side, the next turn toward deeper water. Enough. George looked once toward the east, where Dunkirk lay behind haze, then toward the west, where England waited beyond grey light. He said, "Weather's holding." Alan nodded. He He did not know whether the weather was good or only less bad. Less bad was enough. On another vessel, René Marchand sat with his back against a low rail, and the tin cup tied to his pack resting between his knees. His uniform was wet to the waist. His hands had stiffened around the cup. Beside him sat the British soldier who had pointed and said tea. Neither had tea now. The British soldier touched his own chest and said, "Thomas?" René understood. René. Thomas nodded. René. The pronunciation was wrong. René accepted it. He pointed toward the cup. "Thee later." Thomas smiled very faintly. "Yes, tea later." This was enough language for the crossing. Names, tea, later. Enough. René held the photograph inside his coat with one hand for a moment. His wife beside the bicycle, his daughter with the word papillon, a canal stone in his pocket, the channel beneath him, France behind him. No single thought could hold all of that. So he held the cup. A cup was small enough. Arthur Bell tasted tea again after sunrise. A sailor passed it along in a row of tin cups. The tea was pale, warm, slightly oily from the cup. It tasted of smoke, salt, metal, and something like England. Arthur held it with both hands. He drank slowly. The warmth moved down his throat and seemed to enter the hollow places under his ribs. Morris woke long enough to ask, "Is that tea?" Arthur said, "Allegedly." Morris took the cup, drank, closed his eyes. "Beautiful." The corporal said, "Your standards have collapsed." Morris gave the cup back. "Good." No one laughed loudly. The sea was too wide for loud laughter, but Arthur smiled. It was enough. Through the morning, the ships moved toward England, some faster, some slower, some crowded with men from the beaches, some carrying wounded, some carrying crews who had already crossed and returned. Some vessels were marked by the strain of the days, salt on rails, smoke stains, rope burns on wood, scratched paint, wet blankets piled in corners, tea kettles blackened by constant use, cups dented, decks marked by boots that had carried Dunkirk sand across the channel. The evacuation was not one crossing. It was crossing after crossing, wave after wave. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out. Men left the sand, boats took them, ships carried them, England received them. Then the boats turned back. Again, again, again. By the end of Operation Dynamo from May 26 to June 4th, around 338,000 men would be evacuated from Dunkirk. British, French, and others who had reached that coast through the collapse of roads, plans and fronts. The number would become famous. But on the deck that morning, Arthur did not know the number. René did not know it. George did not know it. Alan did not know it. The men with cups and blankets did not know it. They knew the roll of the ship, the taste of tea, the ache in the feet, the weight of wet cloth, the letter still inside the coat, the fact that the beach was behind them. For now, that was enough. Near midday, the first sign of England appeared to some of the men as nothing more than a change in the haze, a paler place, a suggestion, a line that might have been cloud. Men looked, then looked away. No one wanted to be fooled by weather. The ship moved on. The haze shifted. The pale shape stayed. Then slowly, the white cliffs of Dover became certain. Not bright at first, not clear. Only a whiteness beyond grey water. Chalk rising from the coast, soft against hard sea, white against grey, home against distance. The men did not cheer. Most were too tired. Some stared. Some lowered their heads. Some closed their eyes. Some held cups tighter. Some looked at the cliffs only once, then could not look again. The cliffs had existed in their minds through all the waiting. Behind the haze, behind the channel, behind the line, behind the fear held quietly. Now they were there. Real. White. Still. The channel carried the ships toward them. She had separated the men from that shore. Now she released them. Not all at once. Wave by wave, hull by hull, boat by boat, man by man. The tide breathed. The sea moved. The cliffs remained. Arthur looked at them and thought of Kent. Not clearly, not as a picture, only as rain, a garage floor, his sister's handwriting, his mother saving tea, a dog barking somewhere near a lane. The thought was too gentle to hold for long. He looked down at his boots. Sand still clung to them. The beach had crossed with him. Nothing unusual, just the sea, just the cliffs, just the sand still in his boots. At an English harbour, the ship came in among others. The place was busy but not loud in the way Arthur expected. There were voices, orders, ropes, gangways, engines, feet on deck, feet on stone, men moving. But there was also a strange quiet under it, a receiving quiet, a place trying to take in too many men with too little sleep and not enough words. Women handed out tea, men handed out blankets, medical orderlies directed those who needed care, railway workers moved with clipboards, sailors shouted instructions in low, practical voices. No speeches, no large gestures, only cups, blankets, directions, names, trains. The smell of the harbour was different from Dunkirk. Still salt, still diesel, still wet rope, but mixed now with coal smoke, tea, damp stone, English rain, and bread from somewhere inland. Arthur stepped from the ship to the dock and felt the ground not move. For a moment that felt wrong. After sand and wood and steel and water, solid ground seemed almost rude. Morris stepped beside him. The corporal came after. A woman in a dark coat handed Arthur a cup of tea. He took it automatically. She said, "Careful, it's hot." He stared at her because the sentence belonged to another world. A world where hot tea was a small danger, a world where people warned you before warmth touched your hands. He said, "Thank you." His voice sounded rough. She nodded and moved to the next man. Arthur held the cup. Real tea this time, or close enough. Hot, brown, steam rising. He drank. The taste was simple. Tea, milk perhaps, sugar perhaps. He was not sure. It tasted like return. Morris received a blanket. The corporal was directed toward a line for trains. A man asked Arthur his unit. Arthur answered. The man wrote it down. Arthur watched the pencil move across paper. The scratch of a pencil had followed him from the beach to England. On the sand, men wrote letters. At the mole, men checked lists. On the docks, clerks wrote names. Paper still mattered, names still mattered. No one could carry the whole evacuation in memory, so names moved into notebooks, rosters, station lists, hospital forms, transport papers. A name written clearly became one more step away from the beach. Renee reached England by another route, on another vessel, later the same day, or perhaps the next. Time had become difficult. He stepped onto a dock with Thomas beside him. Someone wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. Someone gave him tea. He looked at the cup and smiled because the word had crossed with him. Tea? They? Later had become now. Thomas lifted his cup slightly. Renee lifted his. They drank. No toast, no speech, only warmth. Renee thought of his wife beside the bicycle, his daughter saying papillon, the stone in his pocket. He did not know what came next. Hospital, camp, train, another unit, another order. The war was not over, not for him, not for any of them. But the beach was behind him. The channel was behind him. For 1 minute, that was enough. George Taverner did not stay long on the English side, nor did many boatmen. Some unloaded men and turned back as soon as they could. Others were ordered differently. Some boats needed repair. Some crews needed rest and did not take enough. The little ships came and went through exhaustion. George's engine had begun making a sound he disliked. He listened to it at the harbour wall, head tilted. Alan stood beside him, wrapped in a coat too large for him, holding a mug with both hands. "Bad," Alan said. George looked at him. "Engines are never good. Some are useful." "Is this one useful?" George listened again. "For one more crossing, maybe." Alan said nothing. George looked toward the grey water. The channel was still there, ancient, patient, indifferent to tired men and stubborn engines. George drank from his mug. The tea was strong, too sweet, excellent. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Check the rope." Alan set down the mug and checked it. Nothing unusual, just the rope, just the engine, just the old water waiting. The trains began carrying men inland, from Dover, from Ramsgate, from Margate, from other receiving ports along the English coast. Stations filled with damp uniforms and tired faces. Men sat on benches, on platforms, on kit bags, on the floor. Some slept before the train arrived, Some slept standing. Some held cups of tea that cooled in their hands. Some wrote postcards if paper was given. Some stared at advertisements on station walls as if the ordinary world had become difficult to understand. A poster for soap, a timetable, a notice about parcels, a clock, a woman carrying a basket, a boy staring at the soldiers until his mother turned his face away gently. The station smelled of coal smoke, rain, tea, wet wool, steam, wood, dust, and the faint sweetness of ordinary shops nearby. Arthur boarded a train with Morris and the corporal. They found space in a carriage already crowded. Men sat shoulder to shoulder, packs under feet, rifles stacked where told, blankets around shoulders, boots still sandy. A railway worker closed a door. The train waited, then moved, slowly at first, then with rhythm. The sound of wheels on rail entered the men like a lullaby too tired to sing. Clack, pause, clack. The channel was behind them, the beach was behind them, the mole was behind them. The train carried them through green countryside that seemed impossible. Fields, hedges, trees, cows in pastures, low houses, wet roads, rain on windows, the unbelievable quiet of land not yet reached by the same kind of ruin. Arthur watched through the glass. The window reflected his own face, then fields, then his face again. He looked older than he remembered. Morris slept beside him with his mouth open. The corporal held his pocket watch but finally slept. The chain looped through his fingers. Across from them, a soldier held a pack of cards without playing. Another held a biscuit and did not eat. Another wrote with a pencil stub on paper resting against his knee. The train moved inland. The list of sounds changed again. Wheels on rails, rain on glass, soft breathing, a cup sliding slightly with the motion, newspaper pages turning, a cough, a pencil scratching, a boot shifting on the floor, a distant whistle, the low murmur of men too tired to speak clearly. If you are still here, you can let the train carry you. The beach is behind us now. The channel is behind us. The line is no longer moving. The tide is still breathing far away. You do not need to follow anymore. Rest inside the sound of wheels. That is enough. At a station somewhere inland, volunteers handed more tea through windows. Some gave sandwiches, some gave cigarettes, some said welcome home and then seemed unsure if the words were too large. The men took what was offered. Not all ate, not all spoke. One soldier took a sandwich, stared at it, then wrapped it carefully in paper and placed it in his pocket. Perhaps for later. Perhaps because food had become something to save. Arthur took a cigarette, though he did not want it. He placed it behind his ear as Morris had done on the beach. Morris woke, saw it, and said, "That's my style." Arthur said, "I'm carrying it in your honour." "Very poor honour. Enough." Morris nodded. "Enough." The train moved again. Rain streaked the window. English rain. Not sea spray, not channel mist. Rain on glass. A simple sound. A home sound. For many men, that sound would return later in memory more sharply than speeches. Rain on windows, tea in cups, dry blankets, the smell of coal smoke, the soft green of fields, the absence of sand underfoot. At a camp or barracks later, Arthur found a place to sit on a real bed. Not a good bed, not soft in any grand way, but a bed, a frame, a mattress, a blanket that was dry. He sat on it before removing his boots. For a while, he did nothing. No line, no order for that minute, no tide, no mole, no water to enter, no rope to grab, only the bed beneath him. He slowly untied one boot, pulled it off, turned it upside down. Sand fell onto the floor, a little stream, Dunkirk sand, French sand, beach sand that had crossed the channel in leather. He watched it fall, then removed the other boot, more sand. He almost laughed, then did not. He reached into his coat and took out his sister's letter. It was damp at one edge but readable. He placed it on the blanket. Beside it, he placed the cigarette he had taken at the station, then the stone. He had picked it up after all near the waterline before going to the mole for the final time. A small pale stone. No special shape, no reason, only weight. He placed it beside the letter, a cigarette, a stone, a blanket, a bed, enough. He found paper later, not much, enough for a short letter. He wrote, "Dear Mum, I am safe." Then he stopped. The sentence was too large and too small. He looked at it. I am safe. It did not explain the beach. It did not explain the mole. It did not explain the channel. It did not explain the men still waiting. It did not explain the French soldiers on the perimeter. It did not explain the small boats. It did not explain the tired hands that had pulled men from water. It did not explain Morris, or the corporal, or George, or Renee, or Thomas, or the nameless man whose head had rested on Arthur's shoulder. But it would do the first work. It would cross home faster than he could. It would reach a kitchen, a mother, a sister. A silence held too long. I am safe. Enough for now, he continued. There is sand in my boots even here. I think it crossed with us. I still have your letter. Tell everyone I have had tea. Proper tea. I will write more when I can. He folded the letter. His hands were steadier now. Not steady. Steadier. Outside, rain touched the window. On another bed in another room, Morris slept under a dry blanket. The corporal lay fully dressed with the pocket watch beside his hand. Renee in another place held his cup and tried to write in French to his wife. He began the same way. Je suis sauf. I am safe. He paused, then wrote that the sea had been grey, that he still had the photograph, that he had drunk tea with English soldiers, that he did not know what came next. He did not mention everything. No one could. George Taverner finally slept sitting in a chair beside the harbour, one hand still black with engine grease. Alan slept on a coil of rope with a coat over him. The fishing boat bumped softly against the quay. Her engine was silent. For once, no one listened to it. The channel moved beyond the harbour wall, still breathing, still old, still grey-green under cloud. By June 4th, Operation Dynamo had ended. The beaches were emptier, not empty in the way a holiday beach is empty, emptied by departure, by abandonment, by tide. The sand remained, it held marks, it lost marks. The channel pulled at the shore. The mole stood, worn and creaking, having held more weight than anyone had expected. The small boats returned to harbours, rivers, moorings, yards, repairs, and stories not easily told. Some would go back to ordinary work. Some would be changed by the crossing. Some would be remembered by name: Sundowner, Medway Queen, Princess Elizabeth, Mona's Isle, and many others. The channel watched them return. These wooden bodies with civilian souls. She had carried them out. She had carried them back. Not as an armada in a grand sense. Just boats, just engines, just rope, just hands, just enough. The war did not end at Dunkirk. No one who returned honestly believed that. There would be more years, more roads, more names, more waiting. The evacuation was not victory in the simple sense. It was survival. It was removal from one shore to another. It was men saved for a future none of them could clearly see. The quiet after return did not erase the beach. It only placed a door between the men and the sand. In trains, in barracks, in hospitals, in billets, in village halls, in stations, men slept. Some for an hour, some for 10. Some woke suddenly because the body still expected the line to move. Some reached for rifles that were stacked elsewhere. Some touched pockets for letters. Some checked cups. Some opened boots and found sand. Some cried quietly. Some did not. Some wrote home. I am safe. I am back. Do not worry tonight. I have eaten. I have tea. I will sleep now. The simplest sentences carried the most weight. The taste of real tea. The weight of a dry blanket. The sound of English voices. English birds in the morning. English rain on windows. A kettle in another room. A bed that did not move. A floor without sand. A door closing softly. A cup growing cold because no one needed to hold it for warmth anymore. These things became the after. Not grand, not complete, only real. If you are still listening, the story is almost ready to sleep. The beach is emptying now. The channel is far away. The men are in trains, beds, barracks, and rooms with windows. The tide is still breathing. But you do not need to stand in the line anymore. You can let the line go. You can let the sand fall from the boot. You can let the cup cool. Enough. Imagine the beach again after the men have gone. Dunkirk under a low grey sky. The long sand marked and smoothed. A few abandoned objects near the dunes. A tin cup half buried. A broken crate. A strip of cloth. A footprint filling with water. A boot print softened by tide. A small fire gone to ash. The mole stretching into the channel, quiet now. Wood dark with water, pilings wet, rope hanging slack, no line moving three abreast, only wind, only gulls, only the old sea. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out, the tide came slowly, then left slowly. It pulled at the empty sand, it moved around stones, it erased the shallow marks, it left others for a little longer. The channel did not celebrate. She did not mourn in words, she simply breathed, grey-green, cold, patient, ancient. The beach faded, Panne faded, Bray-Dunes faded, Malo-les-Bains faded. The dunes softened, the abandoned vehicles became shadows, the low fires went dark, the harmonica tune thinned into wind, the mole faded into mist. The small boats became dark specks on grey water, then smaller, then gone. The trains moved inland, the windows blurred with rain, men slept under dry blankets, letters lay on tables, cups cooled beside beds, a pocket watch rested near a hand, a photograph dried near a lamp, a stone from the beach sat on a wooden shelf. No one needed to explain it. It was enough. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out, the men slept. The tide pulled at the empty sand of Dunkirk. Again, softer now. The channel breathed in, the channel breathed out, the men slept. The tide pulled at the empty sand of Dunkirk. There is nowhere else to go tonight. No line to keep. No tide to watch. No boat to wait for. No rope to hold. No ladder to climb. No train to board. Only breath. Only quiet. Only the slow fading of a grey shore. The cup rests. The blanket is dry. The letter is folded. The rain touches the window. The bed is still. The men sleep. The channel breathes. In and out. In and out. The channel breathed in. The channel breathed out. The men slept. And the tide, patient and indifferent, pulled at the empty sand of Dunkirk.